guys? Welcome to another episode of King Jing Things. I am King Jing. He is Mike Barnett. And today we are bringing you another cycling preview. We've got the Giro D'Italia coming up, 2025, that roughly translates to Tour of Italy. I believe this has been done. The race has been around for over 100 years. Am I right on that, Mike?
Correct.
Awesome. This is just going to be another one of those episodes where Mike's teaching me new things and trying to get me into cycling. So, I'm very intrigued to see how this goes. And Mike, why don't you take it away, man? What makes this race so unique compared to the other races that are on schedule?
Well, let's start real quick. You did a great job on your pronunciation. Very proud of you. That went through very well. So congrats to you because I probably say it sounding like an idiot. Uh, what makes this race specifically more unique than most of the race on the schedule? And so every cycling season, we have three, what we would call 3-week tours, 3-week monuments. These are the three biggest races in the world. Most people know the Tour de France, right? Well, there's still two other 3-week races on the schedule, which you have the Giro d'Italia and then you have the Vuelta de España. So that's, of course, the Tour of Spain. We obviously have the Tour de France and then the Tour of Italy. This one specifically, a lot of times, and it's always the first 3-week race of the year. And realistically, it's always an unpredictable weather because you're still coming out of winter, but you're racing in the Alps. So, like, right now, there's actually fear of snow affecting some of the stages in this race on the west side of Italy. But we don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. The scenery is just beautiful when you're going through Italy. And then, of course, the race ends in Rome. But what we find in this race a lot of times is, some of the bigger riders may not race this race so they can prepare for the Tour de France, which is in about a month and a half. So we start to see guys that are some of the best in the world still, but it can sometimes be more exciting in a place where in cycling right now, we know who the two favorites are to win anytime they go to race. So I think this is going to be a really fun race, a really exciting race. There are some favorites, but anything can happen over the 23 days.
Would love a nice little bike ride through Italy, but I am going to go ahead and guess that this is a little bit brutal than what I'm thinking. I read that this year the Giro starts in Albania for the first time. Like, what's the significance to that, and how does this sort of set the tone for this edition of the Giro d'Italia?
So what's really cool about it is, and a lot of the bigger races are trying to do this where they can start and have a stage or two in one of the other countries because it's really about trying to bring the fans in a sport that a lot of stages can be really hard to get to per se, right? Like it's not like you're just racing, you're going to a stadium and watching them play football, or you're watching a different sport where you're there the whole time and then you leave when the game is over. Over the 21 days that they actually race and their 2 rest days, they're going all over the country. They're traveling the entire country of Italy basically to do this. So Albania's actually never had the Giro start there. This is going to be the first major race that they've ever had start there ever. And again, it's really about growing the sport. We love watching sports grow and things like that occur. And they're doing 2 things. So actually starting with a mountain stage in Albania, which is huge. That doesn't happen very often, into an individual time trial, for stage 2. So immediately the race is going to start off with a bang versus what some people would call like a prologue or maybe an easy stage. It's going to be 21 days of hell compared to maybe a couple easy stages here and there.
I did read that there's supposed to be over 52,000 meters of climbing on this year's route, which just sounds brutal. What stands out to you most about the overall course design? And could you sort of break down the stages that we're seeing? Or are we going to see more of like a balanced route, or is it going to be something that favors the climbers here?
So the Giro, normally more than like the Tour de France or La Vuelta, it seems to always have more climbing. Maybe not more mountaintop finishes or things like that, but a lot more climbing. And this is the most climbing they've almost ever had. So you're just immediately talking about guys that want to go for sprint stages or aren't as good in the mountains that are just going to struggle for the whole time, but they're there to work for their leader. That's realistically their job. And this year, I think it's broken into so we have six sprint stages, which are 4, 5, 6, 12, and 18, and then of course 21, which goes through Rome. We have five high mountain stages, which I'm actually realistically really excited about this year because for whatever reason they're really backloaded, which means that stages 19 and 20, for example, are going to be really strong stages. And we'll talk about that a little more here shortly. But it's going to make for a really interesting finish to a long 3 weeks. And then we have about eight hilly to medium mountain stages. So these are stages where, your best climbers maybe aren't making up as much time, but are leaving behind the leaders that aren't as strong as they thought they were. And this is going to be really important to the race later because realistically, as much as you want to win, a podium is important and a top 10 is important to the overall scheme of your entire season, especially when it comes to UCI points. So this isn't just if you lose, you lose. It's we need the top 10. It's still really important. And then, of course, I mentioned there's one-time trial in Albania, and then there's a second-time trial down the road as well. That's going to be in Italy. So these are where you can really go through different time differences. And there's just some riders that are better in a time trial than others. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with the favorites here shortly.
Sticking with the different stages, I see here that stage 9 is the gravel stage to Siena. Is that going to cause like damage, or is it just going to be good theater at that point?
I think they threw this in, and funny enough, I think a lot of people were upset that they threw this in. Maybe not me necessarily, but this happened in the Tour de France last year too, where they had a gravel stage. The thing with gravel stages is not that you can win the race in that stage, but you can absolutely lose it. Whether it's with injury, something else happening, you could lose minutes and minutes just based on a flat tire. You are almost looking at luck more than you are your strength at times. And we talked about Paris-Roubaix. It's like you're adding a Paris-Roubaix like race. I mean, there are more cobblestones than gravel, but it's the same outcome of things that could happen to you that you wouldn't look forward to. So realistically, it's not going to win anybody this stage, but it absolutely could ruin an entire race.
It does look like the final week in the Alps is looking to be incredibly difficult. Which certain mountain stages do you think will end up deciding the race?
Realistically, stages 19 and 20 are brutal, both with mountaintop summit finishes. Um, this is where the Giro is going to be won or lost. You're going to be able to see, we'll have 3 weeks of build up to see who really is the strongest, but we've seen it in the past where a guy that's strong in week two might have blown his load in week two, and come week three, he just doesn't have it anymore. We've seen the opposite where a guy in week two who's really struggling comes back and finds form in week three, and he just saved just enough to come back and win. This isn't going to be like we've seen in some of the past Giros where somebody gets the jersey in week five or in day five and then holds it to the end. This could go back and forth many times between breakaways and different riders. I can't wait for stage 20 because realistically, that's when we'll know who won the race.
It's funny that you brought up the different riders because we have learned that our boy Poggi is going to be skipping this year's race. With that happening, who becomes the clear favorite here, or is there not really a clear favorite?
I think in most people's minds, there's two clear favorites of who they think will win the race, and that's going to be Primoz Roglic and then Juan Ayuso. Roglic from Bora Hansgrohe, Red Bull, and then Juan Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates, same team as Poggi. We have seen them in a couple races already here in the past, and I would say they are probably closer to form. It's basically like this in cycling. When it comes to the 3 week races, you have Pogacar and you have Vingegaard, and they're in a league of their own. Nobody is close. Roglic would easily be the next closest person, and he's probably in with Remco Evenepoel, and then Juan Ayuso and João Almeida are probably pretty close, and so is Adam Yates. Three of those guys I just mentioned are on Poggi's team. With no Poggi being there, it's going to be really interesting to see who else is going to be able to step up from other teams to show that they're on form because realistically, nobody knows who that is. I think everybody's just looking right now at Roglic and Ayuso to be the favorites.
You mentioned the teams and the team aspect of cycling. How important are teammates this in this year's Giro? And who would you say has the strongest team on paper?
Yeah, realistically, the team aspect in a 3 week race like this is the most important part to the race. If you are left behind with nobody to help you early in any of the stages in the first 2 weeks and you have to use, ride into the wind on your own and use power that you're trying to save for as long as possible, you're not going to be able to withstand 3 weeks of this race. And I think realistically, Roglic and Ayuso have the two best teams. If I had to pick the strongest team on paper, it's going to be Team UAE. Brandon McNulty, Adam Yates, these are two guys specifically that are going to, one, McNulty's going to drive the train, and then Adam Yates is going to be with Ayuso every step of the way. Ayuso is a favorite to win. Adam Yates is also a favorite to win. Like their goal, I don't believe, is for Ayuso to get first place and then Yates just work for him. I believe they're going to want to try and get two guys on the podium if they can. That's not to say that it's going to happen, but UAE, they're the best team, and I'm curious to see what they do. But Roglic has Jai Hindley, who has been really successful in these 3 week tours as well. But he just hasn't been on as well of form as he was 2 years ago. So curious to see what he does. But UAE right now, best team.
It sort of seems like you have a clear vision of who will end up standing up at the podium, at the end of all of this. Could you give us any dark horses that, could surprise us in the general classification?
I have two that I think if they somehow were to really succeed in the first week might change their mind on what their goals were. And it's Tom Pidcock and Richard Carapaz. Realistically, we've kind of seen it sounds like Tom Pidcock's going to really be more going for stages on his new team than he is going for victory in the entire race. And he just had a pretty good classic season, and I kind of think he's more leaning towards that be strong and win some stages. But if he was to somehow figure out some kind of lead in one of those early time trials, I wouldn't be surprised to see him make a move to go for the win. Everybody wants to win a race when they're in it, and he's one of the best bike riders we've ever seen, especially in mountain biking. So I think he could do it. Richard Carapaz actually won in 2019, so I think he would actually be a good one. Uh-oh. Can you hear me still? Oh
Yeah,
no. Oh, I was totally like my whole computer froze.
I can cut it.
Okay. Do you want me to just go back into it?
Yeah. Or do you want me to start over with the dark horses?
Yeah.
All right. So it seems like you have a pretty clear vision of who you're going to end up who you're going to end up seeing standing up on the podium at the end of all of this. Do you have any dark horses that you could give us that might surprise us in the general classification?
Yeah, I think I have three. I'll start with the first two. We'll talk about Tom Pidcock and Richard Carapaz specifically. Um, I think these are two guys that are going to go for stage wins in this race versus trying to win the whole race, which are still really important to the team and the UCI points that they build. But I think if they go through the first week and are really close to the podium, they are going to change and shift their minds to what is more important, and that would be winning the whole race. Richard Carapaz is a former winner. He won in 2019. I don't know if he's on the same form as he was in 6 years ago, which is why I think he could just be going for stage wins, but he's not somebody that I would ever bet against if he's riding well in the mountains. I also think Derek G would be, he's somebody that's been probably on the best form of his career over the last year. And he just could be, if you want to talk about a genuine dark horse, he could be a genuine dark horse here of somebody that I feel like we talk about him, but we don't talk about him the way we talk about everybody else. And then he ends up in the top 5 or top 10 in results almost every race. So he would probably be my best dark horse surprise if I was betting man.
It looks like we have probably six sprint stages here that might be up for grabs. Are there any sprinters that you are personally looking or backing to dominate this stretch?
I actually think it's going to be pretty close. I mean, there's a lot of good sprinters in the field. You know, uh, I think Olaf Koy from Team Visma Lease Bike, having Wout van Aert to lead him out, because I think realistically that's going to be his job and going for stage wins versus, maybe being the sprinter himself is a tactic that nobody else is going to have in the race. But there's also guys like Sam Bennett, Caden Groves. These are guys that continually win sprints when they're in them. Mads Pedersen obviously is also a great sprinter, and where I see him succeeding is I think he's going to be one of the ones that can make it through the mountains better than some of these other guys, and that's what's going to be important to some of these stages. So I see Mads Pedersen actually winning a bunch of the stages and possibly winning the jersey for sprinters, but I think if I had to pick somebody to get the most wins, I think I'm leaning towards Caden Groves this time.
We mentioned there are several different terrains that these cyclists are going to be battling in this race. What climbers do you think we're going to see lighting up breakaways or sort of going all in for stage wins in the high mountains?
Yeah, I think Richard Carapaz, he's always just a wild card for what he can do on a bike, and he's so much fun to watch. I think he's going to be, if again, if the first week changes things and he's going for a GC position, it'll be one thing. If he's not, he's going to be going for stage wins, and I could see him getting the most from a climber standpoint. I'm also curious what guys like Egan Bernal are going to do, or Mikel Landa, who I think are going for GC, but if they lose some time, let's say on stage 9 in the gravel stage, they were to lose a bunch of time. These are some of the strongest climbers in the world that if they ended up in a breakaway and a few minutes up the road, they're probably not being brought back on one of these big mountain stages. And the guys aren't going to waste their energy trying to bring them back if it's not going to affect their overall race. So those would be the guys that I think I'd lean towards. We want to see what exactly happens with them and are going to give us a run for the money to watch.
Is there any particular stage that you are personally most excited to watch? And a little spin off of that, is there one that you think might just bring complete chaos to the race?
I think the stage that I'm most excited for is going to be stage 9, but it's also going to be the one that is going to bring the most chaos. And just looking at it specifically, and I have it in front of me because, it's a gravel stage that it's basically like racing a 1 day classic. It starts with a little climb in the beginning, but once after that little climb, it becomes pretty flat, and then it's just weird elevation all through gravel. Again, like we talked about it earlier, it is where people could lose the whole race. And that's what makes it so interesting is when you're just sitting there watching intently and at any point this could turn everything around, you're kind of standing on your toes for 2 or 3 hours. So that's going to be easily the most exciting stage because people are just going to be really intrigued. And then I just maybe stage 20, once we get a better idea of who's the strongest, if it ends up being a runaway, it's not going to be as enjoyable. Um, but I'm hoping that it still comes down to within 30 seconds when we get to the last stage to see if there's a fight.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you hopping on here and sort of breaking this down for me. It's definitely a sport that I'm trying to gain a little bit more knowledge in, and why not, go ahead and record it and throw it up on YouTube. But before I let you go, I need to get your prediction. Who is going to win the 2025 Giro d'Italia? And if you have it in your bag, how do they win it?
I think Juan Ayuso is going to win the Giro d'Italia, which is an unpopular pick because everybody else is going to pick Primoz Roglic. But I think he's going to limit his losses in time trials. He's going to survive the gravel, which is going to be really important. And then him and Adam Yates are just going to shred the field, leaving Primoz in a very vulnerable position on many stages. And he's going to lose his teammates and then not have a choice but to either just follow. And then there's going to be two guys that are just going to be better once they get to the top of the mountain because they were able to work together. So, I mean, this route just, with all the elevation, it just favors climbers like Juan Ayuso. I know Roglic has been in really good form, but I think this is Juan Ayuso's time to take that next step and show why he is in the position that he is. And especially if he wants any chance to continue to show he's a leader at UAE Team Emirates, which he wants to be. I mean, they have the greatest rider in the world, and he wants to be just like him in Tadej Pogacar. So this is your time to go and win a Grand Tour, and let's go from there.
Good deal, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on and talking about it for a little bit. Uh, if you guys, well, where can you watch it for the people who might be new to cycling and want to get into it?
Yeah, so Flow Sports is probably going to have the Giro d'Italia, but also so is HBO Max. So the first stage starts on Thursday, so anybody can get started there. There's 2 rest days, and they're on 2 different Mondays. So if you go back and see that there's not a race, there is 2 rest days, one after stage 3, one after stage 15. Other than that, yeah, if you as long as you have a Max subscription, you'll be able to watch it, no problem.
Think we talked about this a little bit last time, but it seems like they're making it a bit easier to find their product, to make it easier to watch, and that's definitely going to help with the growth of the sport for sure.
Exactly.
Well, Mike, appreciate you hopping on again. If you guys like what you see here, go ahead, give us a like, throw us a subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.